So it was 2006. I was 7 years old, and I sat with my mother one evening to watch the Oprah Winfrey Show. Yeah, a little unusual for someone that age, I know, but as I was passing through the room, something caught my ear which Oprah said, which intrigued me. She said, "That young boy, Elie Wiesel, lived to bear witness to the evil of man." Sure enough, images began to flash on the TV of a man I now know to be as Adolf Hitler, as well as countless images of starving bodies barely standing, and piles of dead men, women, and even children. It was at 7 years old that I first learned about the Holocaust and exactly what I heard about the evil of man. Needless to say, I was rattled to my core. The thought of babies being gassed by a government filled my head that night as I wept, and I wondered how the Germans could allow for the torture and murder of 6 million Jews. Now, as I grew older and I learned more about the Holocaust, that question began to be answered, at least in part. I learned that Hitler held public book burnings, as well as heavily censored any information given to the German population, so that they had no alternatives to his ideologies, which otherwise could have been defeated simply by knowledge and fact. They say ignorance is bliss, but there's nothing blissful about the ignorance that allowed for the Holocaust, the Armenian genocide, the Rwandan genocide, the cultural genocide of indigenous people right here in Canada to occur. There's nothing blissful about the ignorance that perpetuates racial profiling and allows for countless unarmed black men, women, and children with their hands up, yelling, "I can't breathe!" to be murdered by some of the very people who swore to protect them. Bliss was not what I was feeling when in the 5th grade, a man in a Tim Hortons screamed at my mother that she was a terrorist. And to go back to her camel, she didn't belong here. And not a single person came to her defense. See, my mother and my relatives, they came to this country literally escaping bullets, carnage, and a civil war in Somalia to come to what was supposed to be a better life here in Toronto, yet they faced discrimination in what is arguably the most multicultural city in the world. So where's the refuge? The exact definition of ignorance is lack of knowledge or information. You see, Hitler understood that the best way to incite violence and hatred in a population to gain control was to do exactly that, to keep his followers ignorant. So naturally, to change the world, my proposition is the exact opposite: to educate. If we were to make a class like genocide and crimes against humanity a mandatory course, a class where the myths that perpetuate anti-Semitism and such are debunked, as well as painful histories are taught, rid of bias and both acknowledged, we'll be educating an entire generation as they someday become the world's future doctors, lawyers, and politicians. As the quote that brought us here today states, "The history of man is a history of crime." And history can repeat. So information is our best defense. Through it, we can build. We must build a defense against repetition. Thank you.